September 11th, 2001. A clear Tuesday morning in New York City. Within 102 minutes, 2 towers collapsed, the Pentagon was burning, and nearly 3,000 lives were lost. America was under attack. Most people remember the shock, the images, the horror. But what if I told you that the real impact of 9/11 wasn't just the lives lost or the towers that fell? It was the way it rewired the global political system. It sparked wars, costing trillions, gave rise to new surveillance states, fractured alliances, and, while America was trapped in the Middle East, opened the door for China and Russia to rise. And there's one forgotten policy, passed quietly after 9/11, that reshaped the global financial system in ways you still feel every time you use a bank. We'll get to that. In this video, we're unpacking how 9/11 reshaped U.S. foreign policy, redefined global security, and set the stage for the 21st century's new power struggles. To understand the scale of the shock, you need to know the backdrop. In the 1990s, the Cold War was over. The U.S. stood unrivaled. Washington's main focus? Expanding free markets, NATO enlargement, and promoting democracy abroad. Terrorism was on the radar, but it wasn't the center of U.S. strategy. Meanwhile, in the shadows, Al-Qaeda was growing. Its roots stretched back to the Afghan war against the Soviets, where the U.S. itself had armed and supported Islamist fighters. Osama bin Laden, a wealthy Saudi, turned that experience into a global jihadist network. Why target America? Because in bin Laden's eyes, the U.S. was the puppet master, propping up dictators, stationing troops in Saudi Arabia, and controlling oil markets. He wanted a spectacular attack that would drag the U.S. into a costly, unwinnable war in the Muslim world. On September 11th, that plan succeeded. The attack wasn't random. The World Trade Center represented finance, the Pentagon, military power, and the failed fourth plane aimed at Washington represented political leadership. It was a strike at the heart of American power. The reaction was immediate and seismic. Within days, President George W. Bush declared a war on terror, not just against Al-Qaeda, but against any nation or group accused of supporting terrorism. U.S. troops invaded Afghanistan in October 2001. The Taliban regime collapsed quickly, but the mission expanded into nation-building, counterinsurgency, and hunting bin Laden in caves. Then came Iraq. In 2003, the Bush administration argued Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and ties to terrorism. The invasion toppled Saddam quickly, but unleashed chaos, sectarian violence, and a bloody insurgency that dragged on for years. Domestically, 9/11 created a security revolution. The Patriot Act gave government vast surveillance powers. Wiretaps, data collection, secret watch lists, all became normalized. A new agency, Homeland Security, was born. Every American felt the change at airports, where security became slow, invasive, and permanent. Life before 9/11 and life after 9/11, two different realities. The world reacted too. For the first time in history, NATO invoked Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. Troops from Europe, Canada, and Australia joined the U.S. in Afghanistan. But Iraq split the alliance. France, Germany, and others refused to support it, warning it would destabilize the Middle East. They were right. In the Muslim world, America's image collapsed. The Iraq War, Guantanamo Bay, drone strikes, and civilian casualties fueled anti-American sentiment. Instead of defeating terrorism, the war on terror helped inspire new groups. Al-Qaeda offshoots in Africa, Boko Haram in Nigeria, and later, ISIS in Iraq and Syria. And here's the paradox. The very attempt to stamp out terrorism multiplied it. Now let's talk money. Wars are expensive, but the hidden costs were even bigger. The US spent over $8 trillion on wars and security after 9/11. Afghanistan became America's longest war. The Iraq War destabilized oil markets, sending prices soaring through the 2000s. Here's the overlooked policy I mentioned earlier. In the weeks after 9/11, Washington quietly pushed through sweeping financial surveillance measures. Suddenly, banks worldwide were forced to comply with US rules to track terror money. This gave America enormous leverage over global finance. It wasn't just about terrorism. It reshaped how money moves across borders. At the same time, new industries boomed. Private military contractors like Blackwater, surveillance tech, airport security, drone manufacturing. The war on terror was not just a military campaign, it was an economic machine. But the deepest impact was geopolitical. For 2 decades, the US was trapped in the Middle East, bleeding resources and attention. And while Washington fought insurgents, other powers rose. China expanded its economy, built the Belt and Road Initiative, and quietly gained influence across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Russia reasserted itself in Eastern Europe, testing NATO's resolve. And the Middle East itself unraveled. Iraq descended into sectarian war. Syria collapsed into civil war. Afghanistan fell back to the Taliban after 20 years. And from this chaos, ISIS rose, a terrorist state that took over large swaths of territory. America's credibility suffered. Allies questioned its judgment. Enemies saw opportunity. The unipolar world of the 1990s gave way to a multipolar, contested one. And the seeds of that shift were planted on 9/11. So, what's the legacy of 9/11? It changed security forever. It unleashed wars that reshaped the Middle East. It drained trillions from the US economy. It expanded government surveillance into daily life. But above all, it marked the end of America's uncontested dominance. By focusing on terrorism, Washington gave space for China to rise and Russia to push back. Historians may one day say that the true cost of 9/11 wasn't just the towers that fell, but the power America lost while fighting endless wars. And here's the bigger question. If one morning in 2001 reshaped the world for decades, what decisions being made today are quietly shaping the next 50 years? If you want to keep connecting those dots, from history to politics to the global economy, make sure you subscribe. Because next, we'll dive into how the Iraq War, born out of the 9/11 era, continues to haunt today's Middle East.